recorder. All right, there we go. So good evening, Miss Teresa, and I want to say good evening to our students who are going to watch this video. And I'm Professor Berry. I'm excited. I'm really excited about Survey of Old Testament. So tonight, what we're going to do tonight is walk through. We're going to do a walkthrough of the class, excuse me, so that you understand everything. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. And I'm going to walk you through the class, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about week 1. And let's see here. I'm going to open up another tab and we'll talk about the syllabus, okay?
Okay.
All right. All right, everybody. So, of course, welcome to Old Testament. I'm Professor Berry, and I'm excited that you are here. I want to explain the setup of my class. Excuse me. On the left-hand side, you're going to see the calendar, okay? And when you come over here, when you open up your class and you click on the calendar, you're going to see, excuse me, when something is due. That's what happens when you drink something. Let me grab some water. And then you start talking. You drink some water, then you start talking, then you start belching. All right. Okay, so on the left-hand side, you're going to see what's due. If I open up something, you're going to see those assignments there. So for example, today is the 17th, and today's our class meeting. And for anybody who's wondering, you just click on that class meeting link, and you're going to see the Zoom link there. And you're just going to click on it and join us. Once again, the class meetings are voluntary. You know, we are online, but I use Thursdays at 7 o'clock as a time to meet with you and, you know, answer any questions that you may have. This week, you have your introductory form. So you'll see that your introduction form is due on the 21st. Thank you to those people who have done it. And I've got just a few folks who have not, but that's really important that you log into the class and just simply do that introduction form, because it lets us know that you're a live person and you know you didn't get into a class by mistake. Sometimes that happens, and you really want to be here. So thank you so much to those students who have just said, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm in the class. That's all I need. Okay. And in the middle, let me scroll back here. In the middle of your course, you're going to see modules broken down by weeks. So for example, let me go right here. At the top, you're going to see course resources. And in this little tab, I like to put videos or any type of handouts that I find that are just good resources. Nothing that you have to do. You don't have to read them if you don't want to, but they're really good resources that I found. This is a real good video. You can watch that. I got you a list of the 39 books of the Old Testament if you like to print out things so you always have it. And I do have another document there of the Black presence in the Old Testament. So you can check out course resources, and then I'll continue to build that little tab. It looks like a little folder, right? I'll continue to build that little tab throughout the semester. If I find something cool and interesting about the Old Testament, I'm going to put it in that little folder, course resources. In the second folder is the syllabus folder module, and I want you to read that. If you want to download it and save it to your computer or print it out, that's really good to do. We'll take a look at the syllabus in just a second. All right, so each week is broken down. Week 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth, you know. And one of the things I just already am going to apologize is because when we have these half semester things, we're going to move real fast, but I hate it. We won't be able to cover everything in the book. So I'm going to give you exactly what we need, especially a good foundation of the Old Testament. But we can't even get through all of the Old Testament books. I wish they would have started this course a little earlier. All right. Okay, but we're going to make it do what it do. So for week 1, let me click on week 1. So we're in week 1, and you're saying, well, what do we have to do? Well, most of you did your introduction form. To those 2 or 3 people, 2 people who did not, I can't say it enough. I need you to do your introductory form. That's right up here. You can take a look at the Old Testament introduction video. You're going to get introduced to our, I believe, the authors of this book. It's a little blurry. And he's going to be talking in that video. The next thing I want you to look at, and hopefully I might be able to get to it tonight, is the Old Testament, chapter 1 PowerPoint. And then I want you to take a look at the next file, which is the 39 books of the Old Testament. I do want you to review those. Okay. All right. And then I'll just look at week 2 real quick, but I'm not going to get into it too much. Remember, we start our week on Mondays, right? Yeah, Monday, and we end our week on Sunday. So that makes it real easy for me, so I know when something is due. So everything is going to be due Sunday night. I try to make most of the time everything due Sunday night at 11:59. So that I know when I start my week on Monday, I'm grading on Monday. Okay. All right. So we got next week. This is next week, not now. Next week, we have a week 2 discussion post. And I'm just going to open it up real quick. But you have a week 2 discussion post, and there's going to be a question for you. There's a question. It says, why is a knowledge of geography important to study the Old Testament? And so next week, I mean, if you want to do it now, but next week, this is your question. And so for your weekly discussion forums, you want to make sure that you answer your discussion question in at least a full paragraph. You want at least 6 to 7 sentences, right? And you want to engage your other classmates as well. So try to respond to at least one other classmate. So we don't necessarily have a lot of quizzes and things. These are like your quizzes, okay? All right, let me go back out. And then, see, that's week 2. I'm just getting ahead, okay? But that's week 2. And then week 2, which is next week, some folks said, I don't have the book. So what you're going to see, where you see all this chapter 1, page 21, chapter 1, 22, so on and so forth, I was able to make a couple of copies electronically for people who don't have the book yet. Now, according to copyright laws, we can't make a lot of copies of it because they want us to buy the book. So I made what I could without getting in trouble. Okay. All right. And then I have some reading there for you at chapter 2 for those people who might still be missing it. Okay. But if not, make sure you try to get that book as soon as possible. Okay. All right. Now, let me pause 1 second and I'm going to change my screen. Miss Teresa, any questions so far? I'm going to open up the syllabus.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Okay, stay right there. I'm going to open up the syllabus and we're going to go through that. And let's see. All right, here we go. Okay, I'm coming back to you and I'm going to share the syllabus. So this is a good time for us to, there we go. Make sure we're all clear. All right. All right, so for our syllabus, if you need to get in touch with me, please, you could take down my number, 770-241-9508. That's my personal cell. It's not an office. I don't have an office. I work full-time during the day for the city of Atlanta. So this is my phone, and you are able to call me or text me from, I got a family and a job, so try to do it from 9 to 8 p.m., okay? If you want to email me, that's fine. Email all day long, all night. kberry@atlm.edu. Okay, or you can use our email in D2L in your class, in the class page. Okay. If you need to chat with me about anything, by all means, just let me know. Okay. Once again, our book that we're going to use is A Survey of the Old Testament by Andrew Hill. and John H. Walton. Okay, it's a little blurry. And that's the 3rd edition. Okay. So one of the key things that I just want to kind of go over overview of this class is many times people shy away from the Old Testament because they say, oh, it's old or it's written weird and I can't understand it. And that's all right. Many times when we come to biblical texts, we may struggle with it. And another thing that I want you to understand is that the Old Testament was written in Hebrew. And we'll talk about languages a little bit later. So we will understand the different types of books that we have in the Old Testament. We'll also understand the relationship of the creator God to the Jewish people, because we chronicle the Jewish people or the Israelite people in the Old Testament. And you'll have a greater understanding or greater knowledge of the books, and you'll be able to apply like different theological principles that we find in the books, okay? Let's see, a couple of things. What do I need to give you? Yeah, I don't think we need any of that. Okay. I'm going to scroll down, everybody, and I want to go through our class schedule before I do anything else. There we go. All right. So our class schedule is located in your syllabus towards the end. Okay. And I break down every week. So this week we're in week 1, right? All we had this week was introduction in the forum, which most of you have done that. Read or print your syllabus, and I want you to watch that introduction video. Week 1 is usually kind of weird because people are getting used to the class and finding the book, so I try not to put too much in there. Week 2, we're going to jump right into chapter 1 and 2. We're going to talk about the introduction to Old Testament survey, and we're going to talk about geography, hence that question that you're going to have next week. Week 3, we're going to jump into Genesis. So I won't go through everything, but you will see an assignment. So I try to put like the assignments in bold. Okay. Week 4, we're going to talk about Exodus. 5, we'll talk about Leviticus. Week 5, midterm. You see, it moves fast. Week 6 will be in Numbers, the book of Numbers. And one of the things that we will do that week is look at the role of women in Hebrew texts. Week 7 will be in Deuteronomy. You have an Old Testament book outline assignment. Week 8, because it's like an 8-week course, and then like our last week is final, we will talk about the historical books where I'll try to merge a lot of that in that week. We have a paper that will be due. And I'll also try to cram a little bit in there. I hope I'm not giving you too much on the poetic books. But we really need more time for this class because we won't get enough time to get into the prophetic books, but we'll talk about them when we talk about genre types. Okay, the different types of books that we find. All right. Okay, so let's go over how the grade will be distributed. Your weekly discussion forums will be 20%, the final exam 10, midterm exam is 10. You have a research paper that'll be 20%. Your Old Testament genre chart will be 20%, and the Old Testament book outline will be 20%. And for each assignment, the directions will be located for you in each assignment. Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna stop, pause right here. Hold 1 second. Let me go back to our class. Any questions so far, Miss Teresa?
No.
You
No,
good? All right.
I'm good.
Awesome. Excellent. Let's go back to week 1 and let me see if I can open this up here. So everybody watching, make sure that you watch that week 1 video. What I'm going to do tonight. Okay, good. Let's see if I can make this big. Stay right there, Ms. Teresa. I'm going to pull up our PowerPoint. And what we will do tonight, this is really good. We're moving on a great schedule, is we're going to start talking about chapter 1. Let me see if I can open this up. There we go. All right, here I come. Oops. Okay, I'm going to go back and share my screen. All right, can you see that, Ms. Teresa?
Yes, I can.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. What? Oh, you know what? I forgot I had the audio on here. Sorry, I forgot I had the audio on there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna walk through it. That's what I get. So when you're at home, you can hear my voice. All right.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go right here. We already talked about our book, but one of the cool things that I also want you to pay attention to what I do in this class is, Miss Teresa, can you see my screen where it says welcome
Yes.
to Old Testament Hebrew?
Testament.
All right.
Yes.
One of the cool things that I want you to pay attention to is the artwork. I love to find really good artwork, biblical artwork, should I say, about the Old Testament. And there's so much out there. So if you're an art person, you know, I think you're going to really enjoy the artwork that I find. Okay. Make sure that everybody, you pick up your book. And there was another question regarding the Bible. So if you would like to purchase a Bible, that's fine. But many times we can find things online, and I go to BibleGateway.com, or you can find any online Bible site. And I tell students that if you want to find a good translation or good reading of a scripture, try to use really anything other than King James, because it's very hard to read. So I like New Revised Standard Version, or you can use New International Version. Is easy to read. But I just try to tell students, don't wear yourself out don't use King James Version. It served its purpose because it was the first one written in English. However, we just don't talk like that anymore. And it's like what you're saying. So we want to make sure that we can understand the text. Okay. All right. Now, when we talk about this Old Testament survey, it's just that we don't have the time to get into every book and to every chapter, so it's not like a Bible study. But what we do is we take a look at the Old Testament, and I tell my students we look at it through the back door, right? And what I mean through the back door is, yes, the book, the Bible is already written, right? But we come in through the back door and we say, well, who wrote this? And what type of book is this? And why do you think they placed this here? And what was going on around the context? Where were they? And so we'll take a look at some themes that we see as well in some of these books. All right. Now, when we do a brief introduction into the Old Testament, it's really important for students to allow the Bible just to say what it says. And many times people may sometimes bring their own assumptions of what they think a text is going to say. Okay, but many times just let it say what it says. And so the objective to Old Testament reading is really that we get to know God better. We get to understand the relationship that God had with humans, or with humanity, should we say. And throughout the Old Testament, we get to see how God really reveals God's self to the people of the past, and how they kept showing off and doing things just like us as humans do today, right? But throughout the Old Testament, we continue to see that God never left them. Continue to see he stayed right with them. Okay. And so one of the really cool things is the Old Testament reveals a plan of God, the plan of God, that God had a plan for us. God had a plan for humans. And this is on page 23 if you want to look at it later. But the Old Testament shows from the book of Genesis that the Creator God was involved with creation. It made it happen. And then the people came and the animals and all these things, but still God's presence was always there. And so I want you to see there are 7 stages of God's presence throughout the Bible. You see that, Miss Teresa?
I do.
1 through 7? Okay. If you don't mind, can you read 1 through 7 for me, please?
Number 1, Eden.
Mhm.
2 is the covenant. 3 is Exodus. 4 is the tabernacle. 5 is the incarnation of Emmanuel. 6 is Pentecost, and 7, new creation.
Mm-hmm. And in every stage, God is present. And so as we open up in the Old Testament in Genesis, God is present in the Garden of Eden, creating a male and a female. Then as we move throughout the Old Testament, well, as humans do, they showed off, right? But God said, look, I love y'all so much, and I made you. Look, we're going to get into a covenant together. I'm not going to leave you. And God continues to raise up leaders, and we'll talk about some of those key patriarchs that came through. Then the people said, look, we're being harmed, and then they find themselves, or the Israelite people is who we chronicle in the Old Testament, they find themselves in unfavorable conditions, is what many of us find ourselves in, especially also the book of Exodus also is very similar to African American experience in slavery. And so they found themselves in slavery, but God was still with them. God's presence was there and brought them out. Then it's like, okay, now we're finding a new place of worship. God's presence is in the tabernacle as well. And then as we get into the New Testament, God says, I love y'all, but we got to do something here. I'm going to send myself in flesh, which is the incarnate, in number 5, incarnation of Emmanuel. That's Jesus. God with us. That's what Emmanuel means. God with us. And and so God present in Jesus, and we see that in the New Testament. In the book of Acts, we see the presence of God again through the gift of the Holy Spirit. Okay, through giving the gift of the Holy Spirit, another part of the Trinity. And then number 7 is what Christians anticipate and look forward to: a new creation. And yes, we are new creatures in Christ Jesus, but we look forward to a day when we don't have to worry about voting, right? Yeah, Lord. We don't have
Yes,
to worry
Jesus.
about taxes. and healthcare and all this other crazy stuff that comes with life. We will be in the presence of God. And so that introduction, let me just pause for a second. Miss Teresa, you okay?
I'm good. Thank you.
Good, okay. That introduction really takes us through how God continued to stay with human beings. Relationship. Okay. All right. So let's get right here. We're doing good. Let's get right here and talk about the plan of God. I think this word is so cool. So, Miss Teresa, what's a plan?
A plan is, let's see, how can I explain a plan?
Mm-hmm.
It could be something that's preconceived, a design,
That's right.
um, kind of like a map that leads from this place to
That's right.
another place.
Uh-huh.
Uh, a plan can be an idea,
That's right.
uh, um, a vision, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A vision.
Uh-huh. And let's see, what else could I call a plan? Plans are usually detailed. Um,
Yes.
Usually they're detailed, they're structured,
Yep.
um, they're kind of oh, I gotta plug my sorry, I gotta plug
Okay, no
me in.
problem.
Something that I guess the manifestation of
Mm,
an idea or a manifestation of the manifestation of something that has been conceived,
yeah. Uh-huh.
uh, because a plan usually starts with a thought or
That's
a
right.
picture, an
Mm-hmm.
image, an idea,
That's right.
uh, a desire, maybe.
A desire. Very good. Yeah. Just think about like somebody says, well, I'm going to build a house over here. They had to have an idea first. Well, that's a really nice idea. But if you want to talk to the architecture and you say, I want it this big and I want it wide and I want steps to go like this. Okay, I need some plans.
Mhm.
You got to write it down. And so this is so wonderful to know that God had a hooked up plan already for humans to have a real relationship with them. God already had it already laid out. Already laid out. And then when the plan begins in the Garden of Eden, if you see in number 1, that didn't work so well, did it?
No, not in the end.
No, Lord. So that didn't work so well. And the God's like, okay, now I still got to get you because you showed off, but I still got a plan. That didn't
Mhm.
mean that the plan was broken, like, oh, you just messed up everything, Adam and Eve. Now I got to throw that plan away and get with something else. Nope. God's plan was still human proof, if you could say.
Mhm.
It was human proof. Um, and this is a continuation from the last slide, but when we talk about the covenant, that loving covenant that God had with humanity, we see
Mhm.
that through Abraham. We see the presence of God, for example, with Moses in the burning bush. And God's like, I'm not going to leave you. I'm here. I'm walking with you. There's never a time in the Old Testament or New or now when God's plan is not at work, and there's never a time when God is not with the people. Never a time when God is not with the people. And so in Old Testament literature, we see in the scriptures, no matter what the genre is that God doesn't give up on the humans. Okay. Doesn't give up on the humans. Even when they're rebellious. Okay. Even when they tried to box God in and put God in a box, that didn't work very well, not to rebel. Okay. And then if you look on 5, okay, I already talked about 5. And if you look at number 6 in the New Testament, I call it NT. Jesus serves on the earth. He dies, he's resurrected, he goes to heaven. Remember, we still talk about the plan of God, but the plan was, I can't leave y'all down here by yourself. What was the plan? I'm gonna leave you with
My
the Holy.
spirit. Holy
That's right.
Spirit.
So God already had that set up, that okay, when Jesus comes back, I can't have the people wandering around. They're going to have the Holy Spirit within to help them be connected with me. And let's just pause for a second. That plan of God, that plan that God has and thought about, isn't this so intricate? That's a big plan, isn't it?
It is. Just the ability to know that we was gonna just need something else, because he already knew what we was gonna do.
Already knew.
Already knew.
That's it.
But he still put something in place that still would connect us to him and still stay with us.
That's correct. That's correct. That's the word. And still stay with us. And if anybody asks you, Miss Teresa, and those people who are watching, right? I know this is just the first episode. I said first episode. I'm watching too much TV. This is the first class, right? But if anybody asks you, well, what have you learned so far in Old Testament? Well, that Old Testament chronicles God's relationship with humanity. And that God never left them. Never left them. Did they go through rough times? They surely did. As well as us folks today.
Amen.
Yeah. Yes. But the Old Testament serves as a reflection to the New Testament. So they're not in contrary to each other. They're almost like mirrors. And the Old Testament, and when we get to the prophetic books, the Old Testament prophetic books speak of Jesus coming. The Old Testament speaks of his birth and mistreatment. So it's really interesting, after you get out this class, you tell people, the Old Testament not contrary to the New, one speaks to the other. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about this word called authority. And in that word, you see the word author, right?
Yes.
Author. Now, one of the things that makes it hard for people to read the Old Testament is, yes, this is an extremely old version to read. Okay. There are multiple authors of the Old Testament. And I'm going to tell you now, some, if not most of the books of the Old Testament, there are no original writings that have been found. Scholars have found some originals of the New Testament, but not of Old Testament. Okay. So there are multiple authors. Many times they'll say, oh, so-and-so wrote this book, or maybe Moses wrote this. They think that maybe Moses wrote Genesis. Honestly, a lot of the authorship we don't really know. We just don't. Why?
Why don't we? Because who was really there though?
Yeah. And their records aren't like ours.
No.
Mhm. So in New Testament time, things had progressed a little bit more where there was a type of ink that they could use. There was papyrus of paper, a type of paper that they could use. But even with that, that is still kind of antiquated. So they found scrolls and things of New Testament writing. But Old Testament literature has not been so readily found because of the age.
Mhm.
And it's just hard for something to survive that long. This is a little sidebar. This is totally off the cuff. If you ever get a chance to get to Washington, D.C., there's a really good museum. It's called the Museum of the Bible.
Hmm.
And you talking about, you could just spend hours in there looking at all of these artifacts that they found and different versions of the Bible they found from all around the world. But anyway, it's a really good trip if you're ever up in that area. Okay. All right. So there in the Old Testament, yes, we find narratives, we find poetry, we find songs, we find prophecy, and we find history. So one of the key things when we ask ourselves, when we come to a course like this, how do I read the Old Testament? So
Mhm.
whether you follow Christianity or not, you can read it for its storyline. You can read it for the people, the places, the dates, the history, because they're all important and they can be traced back because they're true people. So if you say, oh, well, I'm interested, you see a particular location, you know, and we can find that location on a map today.
Mhm.
Even if it has a different name. A lot of
Dang.
places have been renamed, yeah. Or a river, right?
Yes.
You hear this river and you're like, wait a minute, that river still exists today. Yeah. So we could tell people that what's in it is true. Now, a couple of things that are going to help you out in this class and beyond, and beyond. A lot of students say, well, with Old Testament scripture, how do I interpret it? How do I know what the scripture's saying? And here are a couple of tips. Miss Teresa, go through 1 through 5, please.
Do you want me to say, let us not assume that we know what a scripture is saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. 1, read the scripture several times.
Mhm.
2, ask yourself what type of literature you are reading. Is this poetry, proverbs, historical, prophetic, etc.? 3, who wrote the book, meaning the author?
Mhm.
4, who is the author writing for, which is the audience?
Mhm.
And 5, why did the author write it, which is the purpose?
Awesome. Awesome. Now, today, the first day of class, you may not really know, like, all right, who's the author of the book and who are they writing for the audience? You may not really know that just yet. That's what we're going to get to this in this class. We'll learn who we think wrote a particular book, right? And who were they writing it for? Usually in Old Testament, the audience is going to be the Israelites who are the Jewish people, and they may be writing to chronicle something. When we talk about Psalms, a lot of the Psalms were written by David. He might have been writing to, let his feelings out and to encourage people. So it's really interesting when we go through the different books, we'll be looking to see who wrote it, who you think they're talking to, and what was the purpose of them putting this in here.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. And also what I tell students is it's okay to ask questions of the text, Old or New Testament, because it's difficult. Many times we don't know everything, and we're saying, well, what is this? And so that's another reason why I said read the text several times. All right. All right. Here's a question a lot of students say, well, what can I do? How can I get the most out of this course? This is a really good book. And just take your time and read, highlight, take notes. That really helps you to get the most out of it. I love this book. And the author did a really good job of researching. All right. What can I learn? So this course is going to help you to learn really to figure out or how to figure out what the text is teaching in the Old Testament. What is the text saying to me? What do I need to glean from this text? And remember, don't lean on what you think you know about the text. You might be right, but there could also be multiple ways of looking at something. Okay. There could be multiple ways of looking at it. And so that is our simple introduction tonight. We did really good because it's 7:53. Here's my information, of course, if you need me. Now, remember, next week, we are going to get into more of the geography. We're going to talk about why when we study these places, especially in Genesis, when we talk about the first book, and we are looking at God's presence in creation, and we say, you know, I also want you to jot down places that we read. Like, okay, so for example, Palestine is in the Bible, right? Egypt. I'm just going through it. Babylon. Jot down these places. Jerusalem, Nazareth. Okay, so jot down those places because many times, look, we're all the way over here in the United States. We don't know where these places are.
True.
And what happened, what helped me when I was in seminary, I'm not good, we were talking about this earlier, Miss Teresa, I'm not good with geography either. So what I would have to do is search it, go on a computer, search it, and get a map. And I would say, give me a map of Egypt, a map of Palestine, Lebanon. Lebanon is mentioned in the Bible. We hear them on the news.
Yes.
Ethiopia is mentioned in the Bible. Sinai, Mount Sinai. So I'm just flipping through certain places. So as you read, listen, we're all the way over here in Atlanta. We're not over there. So what helps us is let me pull up a map of Egypt, or what is Mount Sinai, right? Pull that up, and then that helps us as we're reading. We're like, oh, I kind of got an idea where that is. And I'm telling you, as we're watching the news with all this stuff going on with our Israel
and Iran
and Palestine, they all in the Bible. And many times when I'm watching the news, I have to say, hold up, with Gaza is another one that's mentioned. Look it up, get that map, and then you say, oh, okay, this is where that is. This is Old Testament. Yeah. When we get into the New Testament, well, that next semester, if we take it, New Testament will be in Rome, Italy, Jerusalem. We're still here in those places. Well, a lot of folks traveling. I haven't made my way over there, but people have traveled to Italy. People have traveled to Rome, and Jesus was there. So that
Mhm.
helps, that geography really helps. Yeah. All right. Okay, did I talk your ear off tonight?
No, it was interesting. It's interesting. I'm trying to conceptualize how to zoom in on this.
Mm-hmm. 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 Well,
'Cause
just
this a,
take it week by week.
I know, because it's a mighty big book.
Yeah, and I already apologize. We won't get through all of it, but we're gonna touch as much as we can.
Okay, that's fine. I was like, oh Lord, this thing big as an encyclopedia.
It is. It is. And that'll just let you know how much information is in the Old Testament, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. All right, let me hit stop share right here. All right, so if we have any questions for our students who are watching, you can definitely email me. And for our students who didn't do your introduction form, I sent out some emails today, but just please make sure you do that ASAP, like today. And thank you,
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Risa, for getting yours in. All right. All right. So with that said, we will meet again. Let me see, what's Thursday? This year is gone. Thursday is the 25th, 24th,
24th, I think. 24th.
24th. Like October just got in here.
Mm-hmm. And it's almost the end of the year.
Oh, this is so scary. Oh, I tell you. Well, we're gonna enjoy ourselves this semester. So if any questions, you guys let me know. And I hope that others can join us next Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And it was great meeting you.
Great meeting you too.